At this point, the Pixel 8 has been released for almost 6 months now, and during that time, a lot of aspects have changed, some for the better and, well, some for the worse. Since launch, the Pixel 8 has won Best Smartphone Award at Mobile World Congress, has had several feature drops with new additions to play around with, and at this point has been in our hands long enough to give you a long-term review to see how well it's been holding up. Before we get started, if you love all things Google and Android, consider subscribing to the 9 to 5 Google YouTube channel. All we do here is talk the latest Google news and updates, so if that's something you want to see more of, subscribe to the channel because we have a lot more content on the way. With that said, let's get you caught up to speed on what has changed for the Pixel 8 since launch. As we know, the phone released on October 13th with the first official software update coming out in November, which mainly focused on bug fixes and stability. Then in December, we got a pretty big update for the Pixel line in general, with the most important Pixel 8 features being night sight and time-lapse, the ability to use the device as a webcam, contextual replies and call screening, amongst a few others. The very next month, in January, we got another feature drop that brought Magic Compose to Google Messages, photo emoji stickers, and the big one with Circle to Search. February was an off month where we just got a security update. Finally, in March, we got another feature drop with 10-bit HDR video and Ultra HDR support for Instagram, alongside some smaller things like quick access to Bluetooth pairing, amongst other visual tweaks. So out of the 5 months that the Pixel 8 has been released, 3 of them came with new features, which always made the phone feel like there was something new to play around with. Of course, it's become almost a meme at this point how much more the Pixel 8 Pro gets, like video boost, summarize in the recorder apps, plus Gemini Nano as a whole, which is why I like to call the Pixel 8 the quote-unquote every man's Pixel, at least in my opinion. There's just enough essential features to get most people by, and for Google enthusiasts that want more, the Pixel 8 Pro will guarantee all the crazy niche AI stuff. Now that we got all those updates and changes out of the way, how does the device hold up after 5 months of use? And for the most part, it is as expected. Today, Google's version of Android 14 is the most mature and polished it's ever been, while also addressing a lot of issues left over from Android 13. They introduced some much needed quality of life improvements like lock screen clock faces, expanded accessibility features, improved performance and loading times. The Material You design language has been tweaked to be more tasteful and minimal, all while keeping feature drops coming consistently. Basically, Pixel UI, especially as it stands today, has the foundation to be the most user-friendly platform for people switching over to Android, or for those that want a no-nonsense software experience, at least in my opinion. It's fast, aesthetically pleasing, very simple in terms of navigation, it gets updates faster and more frequently than its competitors, and has a few AI features that most consumers should get some use out of. AI Wallpapers produces surprisingly good results for those into customization. Audio Magic Eraser is a helpful tool to dial down or remove unwanted noises in your video clips. Magic Editor is great to move objects around in photos or stylize them with AI-powered filters, alongside AI-generated summaries for web pages, and Magic Compose that uses AI to help quickly put together a message. Admittedly, it doesn't have every single AI-powered feature that the Pixel 8 Pro has, but as I said, it covers most of what the average consumer is most likely to use anyways. There are some issues though with the Pixel experience, at least from an Android enthusiast perspective. Unlike Samsung's One UI, there isn't a ton of options in terms of multitasking features like decks or floating windows, although Google may be working on that. There are no alternatives for the deep customization we see on other platforms like Good Lock or lock screen widgets, and overall it doesn't feel like you have much control, which in a way is very similar to iOS. You have to know what you're getting into and like it before you get yourself locked in. Then we switch over to the physical hardware of the device, and again, this is an area where the average consumer should probably be satisfied. In the Android world, this is a pretty small phone at a 6.2-inch screen diagonally compared to the 6.3 on last year's Pixel 7. While that may seem like an insignificant change, in the real world it is noticeably better. In fact, it almost has the same footprint as the baseline iPhone now, which should be more enticing to get users to switch over. Plus, the curved corners make it such a comfortable, compact compact little device. I put a skin on mine just to keep the size down and keep the phone protected on a basic level. There's Gorilla Glass Victus 1 on the back with a brushed aluminum frame, which is very slippery in my experience. Anytime I left this device on a table and walked away, it wasn't a super uncommon occurrence to find it laying on the floor by the time I got back. Because of that, a skin or case is absolutely necessary. If not, that camera bar will be beat to hell. If you watched my initial Pixel 8 review, you remember the phone looked terrible after 1 week with no case, and if you take a closer look at that skin, a lot of wear and tear accumulates around those corners of the camera bar, so it's just something to keep in mind. Actual display quality is pretty good too. This year, Google made a lot of users happy by upgrading the display to 120Hz instead of 90 with last year's model. That change alone makes the device feel a lot smoother and removes one less disadvantage you get by going with the normal Pixel 8 over the 8 Pro. The brightness is another huge improvement that elevates the experience, either indoors or in direct sunlight. Probably the only loose end that is left to make this display perfect is the anti-reflective coating like we see on the S24 Ultra. If Google can make that small change, it will allow users to enjoy the updated display tech in the fullest possible way, and I hope we see that on the upcoming Pixel 9. Thermals are another area I've noticed a consistent pattern with the Pixel 8 over the past few months, and this can be segmented into light usage, demanding tasks, and performance over data. For the most part, any regular, average consumer task on Wi-Fi, whether that be social media, web browsing, basic gaming, or content consumption, has been smooth with no real issues to speak of. There's no throttling, there's no overheating, and for the most part has been an excellent experience. For demanding tasks, primarily 3D gaming and COD Mobile or Genshin Impact, you can notice the device does start to get warm and can slow down after about 30 minutes or so, but as many people tell me, you don't buy a Pixel for gaming anyways. Then we take a look at data usage, where the Tensor starts to show its limitations. For short bursts of leaving the house, you'll be fine. Using 5G for extended periods of time, maybe 45 minutes or so while using maps, hotspot, high bitrate streaming, or intense camera usage does lead to noticeable warmth and potential performance drops. During the winter months, I didn't really notice it as much, but now that we're starting to get into the 70s where I live, it's definitely starting to be a more frequent occurrence. Personally, I don't see this being fixed with the upcoming Tensor G4 and probably won't be for a while or until manufacturing switches over to TSMC in 2025 if the rumors are true. Getting into the final aspects of this review, let's talk about the camera, and as a whole, there's not much that's really changed over the past 5 months. We got a new night sight time-lapse feature, as I mentioned earlier, the option to have the selfie palm timer always enabled, and a toggle to disable Ultra HDR alongside some bug fixes. Otherwise, it's still the same highly competitive camera that covers most of the average consumer needs, especially for the price range. The Pixel 8 is most well known for being a solid nighttime shooter in my opinion, and out of all the phones I've tried over the past 5 months from OnePlus and Samsung, Pixel just does it best when it comes to clarity, low levels of noise, and color accuracy. I would say that also extends to indoor environments with questionable lighting. During my time with the S24 Ultra, I noticed their indoor shots were always a bit blurry, noisy, and looked off, while the Pixel 8 was consistently sharp. As expected, daytime photos are excellent as well, but this applies to most smartphones these days. For the Pixel 8, it does a great job handling scenes with high contrast while preserving details in the darker, more shadowy areas. The Pixel 8 also has an excellent macro mode for those wanting to get really close to their subjects, and overall, it's easily one of the best fire and forget type of cameras you can get in its price range. Before we get out of here, I wanted to cover a few specific items that were worth mentioning real quick. Biometrics for the Pixel 8 follow the theme of good enough for the average consumer, but could still be a lot better. Face unlock is fine in ideal lighting conditions, but barely works in low light / nighttime scenarios where I often get the not enough light error. And the same with the fingerprint scanner. It works fine for the most part, but after using the ultrasonic sensor on the S24 series, I find the Pixel 8 is much less forgiving with wet hands. However, there is one major benefit that makes the downfalls worth it, as the Pixel 8 and 8 Pro support sign-ins and payments with both Face Unlock and the fingerprint scanner. We haven't had this on a Pixel device since the Pixel 4 and is one of those nice touches that makes the experience feel way more complete. Haptics are some of the best in the business, as we all know, but Google has been taking things a step further lately by implementing vibration feedback in many aspects of the OS. You can feel it in the multitasking menu, swiping down on the notification shade, and with future versions of Android, it seems they're going to continue making the haptics be part of the experience, which I am a huge fan of. Lastly, I wanted to bring up a few points about charging. We did get improvements over last year's model, so now we have 27-watt charging that can charge the device up to 50% in 30 minutes. That should satisfy most users. It is worth noting that some competitors like OnePlus provide significantly faster charging capabilities, like the 12R that can get to 100% in 30 minutes with a brick included in the box. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I can't help to bring this up as I personally find it so useful. In closing, the Pixel 8 strikes me as a compelling offering for its target audience. I always felt the baseline Pixel devices were meant to be a gateway into the Google ecosystem, particularly drawing in the average iPhone or Samsung user. Most of the fundamental smartphone aspects, from display to software to camera to build quality, are all well done, although I wish the 5G experience was a bit better. Otherwise, it's a solid package. Not to mention, it goes on sale quite often brand new at around the $550 mark, so just keep that in mind. You can easily get a good deal if you keep your eye on Google's promotions. With that said, leave a comment and let me know what you think of the Pixel 8 5 months later. I know it's still early in its life cycle. That said, how do you think it's held up so far? And if you have one currently, leave a comment and let me know what your experience has been like. I'm sure myself and the community would love to read your thoughts. But in the meantime, I'm getting out of here. This has been Jordan Floyd with 9to5 Google. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.